Hello, and welcome to I Am Issachar. It was a week ago today that the Lord revealed to me something that pertained to where we currently are in our situation in our society. What he revealed to me was the book of First Kings and the book of Second Chronicles. Located within those two books was the prayer of Solomon as the temple was being dedicated in Jerusalem. Solomon went before God and asked him, he said, look, chances are we're going to mess up. And when we do mess up and you correct us, as you will, God, would you, if we did certain things, would you remember us and would you hear and would you respond and would you take away whatever plague, whatever blight, whatever enemy you send upon us because of our disobedience? If we make confession, would you remove that which has come upon us? And we discovered that in Second Chronicles chapter 7, the famous chapter 7 verse 14 of if my people who are called by my name, that whole spiel of God, we discovered in verse 12 that it was really God's response to Solomon's request. Well, like I said a week ago, God revealed this to me in these two books about his wanting to heal us, his willingness to respond to what we do if we did certain things according to what was requested by Solomon. Well, I didn't take that lightly. As a matter of fact, as it was revealed to me, I began to share it with others. I took my phone and I went through my contacts, and every pastor that was located in my contacts and every elder that was located in my contacts and my friends that were in my contacts, I immediately sat down and began to write to them what God had given me, what God had revealed to me. I have a friend, my best friend, I love her to death, Mel, and she said, okay, so God told you this. Do you believe him? I said, Mel, I absolutely believe him. Why would he share it? Why would he share this with me unless he was willing to do something about what's happening right now? And so, like I said, I sent it out. And what startled me, what I was met with was people not really believing it. People really saying, well, that's a big order. And people saying, well, that's a challenge. But you know what was startling about that? It wasn't just anybody that was making that declaration. It was the people of God. Those of us who say that we believe in him. Those of us who say we have faith. It was the leaders and the pastors and the ministry leaders and directors that questioned, well, do you really believe this? I was like, absolutely. God is speaking. God is speaking. And not only was he speaking then, he spoke a week ago on April 3rd. He made it known what he was willing to do if we would but do our part. Well, I set to the task and I began to send out the message to, like I said, every pastor in my phone and every elder in my phone. And I got back responses from them. I watched to see what would happen. I watched to see what would happen. I watched to see what would happen. While standing in my kitchen on, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday of that following week, which was only a couple of days later, I was standing in the kitchen and I overheard my father's television. And it was Governor Cuomo making this declaration. He said, we are watching the curve begin to flatten. It caught my ear and I stood there in my tracks to listen fervently to what he was saying. He said, we see that the curve is beginning to flatten, and we noticed that a couple of days ago, this is when it began to happen. Well, that really perked my attention because a couple of days ago was when I sent out that mass message to every pastor that I knew, every elder that I knew, to all of my friends. And I believe they began to respond by praying. Governor Cuomo said, we began to see the curve flatten. And it took place a couple of days ago. That just simply told me that God was keeping his promise to his people, that if we humbled ourselves as his people and we confessed our sins before him, that he would hear us, he would forgive us, and he would begin to move to heal our land. You know what that's known as? It's known as the power of one. What am I talking about? The power of one. Well, I'm glad you asked. The Bible tells us that there was a man by the name of Elijah. And you can find his story in 1 Kings chapter 17, I believe it is. But in James, in the book of James, the Bible tells us that this man, Elijah, that he was a man just like us. As a matter of fact, I would like to read it to you. It says in James chapter 5, verse 17, Elijah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. The power of one. God has also given us this power. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. What does that translate to? He was human, just like us. And yet this one man had such a connection with God that when he prayed, the heavens were shut off. There was no rain for 3.5 years. This one man prayed. And then it tells us he prayed again. And this same one man, was able to open the skies of heaven with his prayers. So my question is, if this one man had the power to shut up heaven, to shut up the rain of heaven by his prayers, and then turn around and pray again and have the showers of heaven to flow over the land so that it would produce fruit, if one man had that kind of power, what might the people of God, when we are on one accord, seeking his face to ask him to lift this COVID-19 virus, what might one voice of one people do on one accord as we petition the Lord, as we make confession of our sins? What might that one prayer do? Might that one prayer save a life, heal a body, bring someone out of their sick bed? What might that one prayer do? You and I are called to be the power of one. The question is, how will we respond? Well, I would hope that, as I stated in the last video, that you would start with confession. We are all guilty of something before God, and God is looking to answer his people. But it must start with our confession of our sins. When we confess our sins, God promises he'll hear us. And not only will he hear us, he promises he will heal us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have too many people's lives that are in our hands. Maybe the responsibility of this COVID-19 virus halting is not with the doctors. It's not with the government. Maybe the responsibility of people being healed in not just our land, but across this globe is really waiting on what God's people will do. Maybe the responsibility of healing is on us. I know we turn to the doctors, and we're turning to the president, and we're turning to these government officials to do something, but the reality is they can do nothing. The power lies with God. The power lies with us. If we but seek his face, he promises that he will hear from heaven. He will forgive our sins, and he will heal our land. Again, Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. He was human. And this one man, with his prayers, was able to cause it to rain, to cause it to not rain. His prayer moved the hand of God. With that being said, are you ready to move God's hand?